Hola, hola, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo están, chicos? Espero que estén muy bien. Hoy vamos a aprender sobre el imperfecto, the imperfect tense. This is a grammar structure that we use to talk about the past. And yes, we do already know or have learned a tense called the preterit that we use to talk about the past. But today we're learning the imperfect. The imperfect is a little bit different than the preterit. So today we're going to learn how to conjugate it, how to change the endings, and also what are those uses that we need to pay attention to in order to use the imperfect. So I have a few examples for you. In the examples you will see what the endings are of the imperfect and also the uses. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so in this slide you can see it's me, soy yo, la profesora Vinces, and I'm saying here, gracias por publicar en Facebook todo lo que hiciste. El suspenso me estaba matando. So here the translation is, thank you for posting in Facebook everything that you did. The suspense was killing me. Okay, so here I actually am using both the imperfect and the preterit in that phrase. But in the next video, I will focus on how to distinguish when to use imperfect, when to use the preterit. But for now, I just wanted to show you how it is conjugated and when it is used, the imperfect specifically. In the second sentence where I'm saying el suspenso me estaba matando, that's kind of the first hint that you can use to recognize when to use imperfect. It is when we're talking about things that were in progress. So that ando ending should probably remind you of the present progressive ing endings. So when things were happening or are happening, but in this case in the past, so when they were happening. So the suspense was killing me. So that was what was happening or what was in progress, and then you posted in Facebook everything that you did. So I'm saying gracias por publicar. So that estaba is a form of the verb estar, the verb to be, and has aba as the ending. That's the first imperfect ending that you're gonna see with AR verbs and the yo form, estaba. It also happens to be that the yo form and the usted, el, ella form are the same. So it could be yo estaba, like I was, or also usted, el, ella estaba, same exact form. So I guess that could make it a little bit easier for you guys to remember the conjugations, because there's usually, one for each, but in this case they're exactly the same. So that kind of helps, I think. But let's go ahead and continue looking at some examples of when to use el imperfecto or the imperfect tense. So first use, it's going to be habitual actions. So when we're describing things that were done repeatedly over and over, maybe every day, every week, every summer, every month, every year, etc. So in the sentence that I have here, I put, cuando yo era estudiante, yo manejaba bicicleta a la escuela todos los días. So manejar bicicleta is to ride bicycle, to ride a bike. So I'm saying when I was a student, I used to ride my bicycle to school every day. So whenever you hear used to in English, that is like a dead giveaway that you're gonna need the imperfect in Spanish. So when I was a student, I used to ride my bike to school every day. Okay, there's not really need to translate used to as two separate words. It's just gonna be the ending or the imperfect ending that you're gonna add to the verb. So manejar became manejaba. So manejar means to ride, manejaba means used to ride. And then era is another imperfect form, in this case of the verb ser, the verb to be. So when I was a student. Okay. Muy bien. Now this one, I used a meme, un meme. As you can see, the use here is going to be events or actions that were in progress. So setting the scene. So think of when you are reading a story or somebody's telling you a story, there's usually going to be some background information. That's usually going to be in the imperfect. So this guy is trying to explain to his teacher, to his profe is the abbreviation of profesor or profesora. He's saying, profe, él también estaba hablando. So he's saying he was also talking, or he was also speaking. So estaba, from the verb estar, is in the imperfect. So again, something that was in progress. He was also speaking, and again we have that ing ending. So that means it was in progress, right? Okay. Another use is going to be physical characteristics. Cuando Brad Pitt era joven, era el hombre más guapo del planeta. So when Brad Pitt was young, he was the most handsome guy on the planet. So was young is using the verb ser in the imperfect, so era. And then for the description, physical characteristics, again, we're using the verb ser in the imperfect. So he was the most handsome or good-looking guy on the planet. According to a lot of people, right? He used to be, he's still handsome, but he used to be very, very handsome when he was much younger. Used to be. Okay. Mental or emotional states. So when you're expressing things that people want or desire, we could use the imperfect. So here in this little comic strip, we see Mafalda. Mafalda, you may or may not remember, I've mentioned her before. It's an Argentinian little girl, very smart, muy inteligente, muy filosófica. The things that she says usually are very existential too. So, and sometimes even political. Okay, so here she's at the beach. Ella está en la playa. She is kind of building sand castles, but they look like human faces. And so the mom is surprised, and the mom says, ¿Y eso? Like, and that's like what's happening? And then she says, nada, quería probar la sensación de sentirme una chica sexy. So quería is the imperfect form of the verb querer, which is to want. So she's saying, I want it. She's expressing some emotional or mental state. And she's saying, I wanted to experience. Probar means to experience. It could also mean to try or to taste, but in this case, to experience the feeling or the sensation or the thrill of feeling like a sexy girl. Because she built all of those faces to be looking at her. So she wanted to experience what it feels like to be a sexy girl. Okay, muy bien. Also, telling the time. The verb that we're going to use is the verb ser when we tell the time, right? But in the imperfect, it's going to be era or eran, depending on the time. So here, eran casi las 12 de la noche. So it was almost 12 at night. If it was 1 and something, then we would say era. Era la 1:40, 1:30, 1:30, etc. But eran if it's more than 1, right? So eran casi las 12 de la noche. Okay, so the verb ser is irregular in the imperfect. There are 3 verbs, and we will see which ones those are in the next video, but for now, ser is one of them. Okay, then for age as well, we're gonna use the imperfect. So here, this is actually my timeline from when I was born in 1985. So yo nací en el año 1985. Yo nací en el año 1985. En el año 2000 yo tenía 15 años. En el 2010 tenía 25 años. Y en el 2020 tenía 35 años. Y este año, en julio, pronto, voy a tener 37 años. Mi cumpleaños es en julio. So here I'm using the verb tener, of course, because we use the verb tener with age, right? So yo tengo 36 años. Not yo soy, but yo tengo. But if I use it in the imperfect, I will use tenía. So as you already noticed, if the verb ends in AR, like estar, the ending is aba. But if the verb ends in ER or IR, the ending is IA. That's for yo and usted, él, ella, as I said, they have the same end. Okay, and so here I have a few sentences of when I was a little girl. And yes, that's me. En esa foto yo tenía 5 o 6 años en la primera foto, en la foto de arriba. Y en la foto de abajo, en la fotografía de abajo, estoy con una amiga. Mi amiga se llama Verónica. Ella es una de mis mejores amigas. Ella era mi vecina en el Perú. Y en esa foto, ella y yo estamos en mi casa. Ella vino a visitarme a Florida, los Estados Unidos. Porque yo vivo en Florida y ella vive en el Perú. Así que ella vino a visitarme. Ok, so cuando yo era niña, vivía en Lima, Perú. So I used to live. Vivía, from the verb vivir, means I used to live en Lima, Perú. Estudiaba en una escuela pública cerca de mi casa. So I used to study at a public school near my house. Tenía 2 mejores amigas que se llamaban Verónica y Sandra. So I had, or I used to have, 2 best friends that were called Verónica and Sandra. All of these sentences are using imperfect because I'm telling you about something that was in progress or that was repeated or habitual. Ellas no estudiaban en mi escuela. So they would not, or they did not study at my school, pero vivían cerca de mi casa. But they used to live near my house. Ellas eran mis vecinas. Eran from the verb ser, so they were my neighbors. So, ella es una, Verónica, ella es mi amiga, ella soy yo, ella y yo estamos en mi casa. Okay, a few more sentences from my childhood, cuando yo era niña. Yo las veía, meaning my 2 friends, yo las veía todos los fines de semana y nosotras jugábamos con nuestras muñecas. So I would see them every weekend. And we would play with our dolls. Muñecas means dolls. Ellas tenían sus Barbies y yo tenía mi Mafalda. So they would have, or they used to have their Barbies and I had my Mafalda. This is the doll version of Mafalda. And I used to also have Barbies, but this was my favorite, Mafalda. Verónica era la más extrovertida y Sandra era la más misteriosa. Y yo era la más estudiosa. So Veronica was the most extroverted. She was the most friendly and talkative, outgoing. My friend Sandra was the most mysterious. We really didn't know where she was. We don't know where she is now. And we didn't know what she was up to most of the time. So she was kind of misteriosa. And I was the book nerd. I was very, very into books. So I was very studious. Era la más estudiosa. Nosotras éramos las 3 mosqueteras. Éramos, the verb ser again, so that's the nosotras form. So we were the 3 musketeers. And so last, a veces íbamos a las fiestas de nuestros amigos, pero no muy frecuentemente. A veces means sometimes. Íbamos, the verb ir, so we would go, or we used to go. This was repeated, or habitual. So we would go to parties or our friends' parties, but it was not very often, but it would happen, repeatedly. Okay, muy bien. So here you have seen some examples with AR verbs, ER and IR verbs. As I said, AR verbs, ABA endings, ER and IR, IA endings, and then you add an S if it's for 2, so ABA becomes ABAS, or IA becomes IAS. If it's about nosotros, habamos or íamos. And if it's about ellos, ustedes, ellos, ellas, it's haban or ian. So I have a meme here, and also I wanted to let you know, guys, in case you have not noticed, link to my YouTube page. I have linked an Instagram page that I created for you guys where I'm posting memes in Spanish. So to kind of help you guys learn Spanish while also laughing a little bit. So check it out. It's called Profesora Vinces. Just linked on my YouTube page, on my YouTube channel, if you open it from a computer. But if you don't, then just type Profesora Vinces on Instagram and you should find it, I think. Okay, so this meme here. Escuché ruidos, estaba saltando en la cama, says the mom, Can. She says, so I heard noises, escuché ruidos. Estabas saltando en la cama. Saltando is from the verb saltar, which means to jump. So were you jumping in the bed? And the little Ken, the child, says no. But he's obviously lying, right? Because he's exploded. So the complete sentence for him, if he wants to say no, I was not jumping in the bed, he would say no estaba saltando en la cama. So for the yo form. Estabas is the you form. Okay, muy bien chicos, eso es todo. I hope it was helpful. I hope it was clear enough for you to understand more or less how to use imperfect. If you have any questions, I'm here. Let me know. I'm happy to help. Okay, ciao, ciao.